Hi, welcome to the Dartarian Show. I'm Alexander Dartarian, and with me today is not Dominic Sykes. It is Trey.
Hello.
Hey, we're sorry about last week and not releasing this episode last week, but we were all sick with COVID. Kind of sucks. So, yeah. So, I mean, we're releasing one this week though. All right, we're doing the episode on Jesse James, the outlaw, the myth, the legend, the racist Southerner. All right. Jesse Woodson James was born September 5th, 1847. He was an American outlaw, bank and train robber, a guerrilla, and the leader of the James Younger gang. So, what is your? I know that you didn't like Jesse James.
No.
Many hearken him as the modern, or not modern day, but the American Robin Hood, almost, of the South and Confederacy and stuff. But before we go any further, due to the time period that we're going to be talking about with Jesse James, there is slavery and racism, of course, and the Confederate, the Civil War was the main focus of the Civil War. It was like 90 to 95% of the reason the Civil War happened is because of slavery. So just be warned that we will be talking about that, and we do not condone slavery or racism of any kind. So we just wanted to get that out of the way before we start talking about Jesse James. And some people believe that he is a great man, and other people believe that he's, all hype and racist and just a POS all the way around. So let's get into his early life, Trey.
Okay. Well, you gotta start with his parents.
All right.
Robert Sally James is his father.
All right. Robert Sally.
Yes, Sally.
Okay. Well, at least it wasn't his first name.
It doesn't matter because he became known as Preacher James.
Yeah.
Because of his church and the sermons.
Yeah.
And, they were very big into slavery.
Yeah.
Like, very big. Before they even moved to Missouri, they were big into slavery. Sorry. Preacher James was known mostly for his fiery sermons.
Mm-hmm.
He really didn't get the correlation, that God and slavery, you know what I'm saying? How normal people are like, oh no, slavery's bad.
Yeah, especially in the Bible. It was like, in the Bible, that's a big part of Moses' journey, is to free his people from slavery. So
Yes.
to be a fire and brimstone preacher is kind of contradictory to a slave owner, if you want to go into that. But
if you want to go that way, into
Yeah.
God's love kind of way. But in the Bible,
you interpret it as
pushes
yeah.
forward for slavery.
It does and it doesn't. In some parts, it's like slavery is bad if you're Jewish or of Hebrew descent. But in the other portions of the book, it does push towards slavery, and it's like you can own someone. It actually says in the Bible that, like, I think you have to treat your slave like you treat something. It says something about slavery. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been a while since I've read the Bible. But it does push forth slavery and how it can be okay at some points, and it's never okay to own another human at all. So that's one of the big problems with the Bible that I totally do not agree with.
But Preacher and his wife, Zerelda, by the time they had their big homestead farm
Yeah.
with slaves, they had a 4-year-old son named Frank. And then, like you said before, September 5th,
Yeah.
1847, Jesse was born. And then the gold rush happened, right?
Yeah.
And his dad was like, you know what? I really think that it's a good idea to go with everybody else to do this gold rush thing.
Yeah, in 1849, yeah. San Francisco, gold rush.
And so he left his wife,
Mm-hmm.
and she was pregnant with their daughter that I don't know anything else about besides the fact that she had one.
Yeah, it's weird because the only sibling that we know of, because Jesse had quite a few.
Yes.
Had like, I think 4 or 5. But anyways, the only one we know of is Frank, and that's because of the gang later on in life.
I guess the other siblings aren't that important because they didn't do much.
They didn't get in trouble. That's probably what it was. They didn't get in trouble. Or they didn't do anything that was good enough to mention.
But Preacher, he joined a group of 30 Clay County opportunists.
Yeah.
Who went to go look for gold, left his wife and 2 children and 1 cooking.
Yeah.
And he went to go find this gold.
Yeah.
Well, he got there,
Mm-hmm.
and then he died a couple months later.
Of what? Do you know of what?
Probably cholera.
Yeah, that was a big killer. Drinking dirty water. I think that killed most people back then. Is just drinking dirty water, because like with cholera, the cure is to literally drink clean water.
It's funny because of how revered he was in Missouri, and how everyone loved him for his pro-slavery stance in church.
Yeah.
And then he died probably of cholera, and then was literally dumped into a shallow grave, and just that's it. End of his life. Done.
Yeah. I mean, just I guess you just never know which way life's gonna throw you, like curveball, like, because he's obviously what you said, he was a revered man in Missouri, and his standpoints weren't great, but
No.
I mean, just to be like, oh well, I'm gonna find gold. Like, what did I wonder if like Zerelda did she like, okay, yeah, go get some gold for us, or was she like, no, like this is stupid. We're good here. Don't go. I'm raising these kids. Although back then, I'm sure he probably didn't listen to his wife anyways. But just to go there and then like make it 2 months. I mean, it took forever to get there. This isn't like jump on a train, get there real fast. In 1849, there was no train that went that far. They built it later after the Civil War. But that being said, I mean, it took them months and months and months to get out west. Mm-hmm. Like the Oregon Trail.
I know.
Yeah. So I mean, like that right there, he took them months and months and months. But just to get there, because most people died on the way. But just to get there and then die a few months later, just shitting yourself to death. And that's a horrible way to die for anyone. Just to shit your brains out, basically, and die. So, I mean,
back to your point about whether or not she pushed him to go or not.
Yeah.
I think the answer is probably yes. Because when he died, he left her in debt.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, he was a big drinking man, wasn't he?
Was like,
I believe he was a big drinking man, yeah. So did she remarry? Did she further her life? Did she get someone to raise James to be or Jesse, sorry. Jesse. Jesse to be a good man?
Because of the time period.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, Preacher didn't expect to die.
Yeah.
Right. He left everything to his sons.
Yeah.
So, and their children.
Yeah.
So she had no control over what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And because she's a woman, she didn't get the farm. She didn't get the kids even.
Damn.
Yeah, the kids went to a neighbor. His name was Tillman West.
Yeah.
And he was in charge of her farm.
Yeah.
So in order to figure this out, she married an way older man.
Yeah.
And his name was Benjamin Sims.
Oh, okay.
Very wealthy, with very many slaves, because that's how they did their wealth thing back then.
Yeah.
And he didn't want her kids.
Oh, really?
So they had to stay with Tillman West.
Well, that sucks. That does suck.
Yeah. but she was a strong-willed woman, so she literally just held out 2 years until he died.
Okay. Well, so she just married him for his money, basically.
Yes, and she
Anna Nicole Smithed him.
while she was with him, she got wealth. She accumulated a cash sum and 5 enslaved people. Right? So when he died, she had some stature, but still it wasn't enough to get her kids back.
Jesus.
Or the farm. So then she remarried.
I like how you can own people, but you, as a woman, but you can't own a farm or have children.
You can have children.
Yeah, but she didn't.
But she wasn't allowed. She wasn't allowed to have any guardianship to them. No. I don't, it's a weird time frame.
You can have slaves, but you cannot have children. That's just stupid.
But in 1855, she remarried again to a doctor.
Yeah, doctor. Okay.
Younger than her doctor. So it goes either way. Sometimes she gets the older men. Sometimes she gets the younger
I thought you were like younger than her doctor. Like as a doctor, like it's a younger doctor came up and she's like, well, I like my doctor, but I want to marry my younger doctor.
No. His name was Reuben Samuel. He was very mild mannered as a man.
Yeah.
And she's strong willed, so she pretty much bullied him into adopting her kids.
Yeah.
And then getting the farm back.
Yeah.
And he didn't seem like he was too terribly upset about it. I mean, And he even gave up medicine to run the farm with her.
Oh, well.
I guess maybe he really did love her.
Yeah.
And she stays with him.
I don't know. There's something about strong-willed women that like they really get like they marry weak-willed men on purpose so that they can manipulate them. And I'm not saying that this is what she did. And it's great to have a strong-willed woman, especially in that time period, because women were not listened to at all. They were treated like second-class citizens for a very long time after that as well. But just to see her like, okay, no, we're going to do this. And her husband was like, okay, I'm so in love with you. I'll do whatever you want. I'll do this and that. And a lot of times, like, maybe he really wanted kids and couldn't have them, or maybe they weren't ready to have children of their own. But
they do have children of their own
later on. Okay,
yeah.
Maybe he was just like, okay, well, like I'm gonna be like, okay, we're gonna have children us together. He's like, that's not fair to deny you of your other children.
It doesn't matter to me, but what matters is she gets her kids back and she gets her farm back.
Yeah,
and
it just took a long time.
It did. It really did. I mean,
was this doctor wealthy? I know doctors. I don't know if doctors like when you think of nowadays, you think doctors, oh, they're wealthy. Right. They're doctors. They make a lot of money. Like, but back then, like, do you think doctors were wealthy? Was he a wealthy man or just?
He had money.
Oh, he had money. Okay.
But in that time frame, enslaved people meant money.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
And 1856, everything's getting ready to just drop, right?
Yeah.
In Clay County, life was comfortable. Being a slave owner was normal for them.
Yeah.
So, and they really didn't see the war coming. They were genuinely surprised when the Civil War started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Missouri is what they call a battleground state, and it still is to today. It can swing both ways, Republican or Democrat and stuff. Well, back then it was like literally it could swing both ways. It could be with the Union or it could be with the Confederacy. Because there was in Missouri there was both pro-slavery sympathizers and what was it called? The other word, con-slavery, pro-slavery and
abolitionists.
Yeah, abolitionists. Sorry, I was like, I had the word, I just couldn't think of it. Abolitionist sympathizers. So they both had, they had both parties there, and they could go either way. Like in this state back then, I don't know if this is in your notes and in your reading that you had, but both like, so if you were during the Civil War, if you were pro-slavery, the abolitionists killed you. But if you were against slavery, the pro-slavers killed you. So either way, you couldn't be in the middle. You had to pick one side or the other and hope to God you're in an area that was what you were surrounded by, what you agreed with. So that's when they say battleground state. That's what it means. Like, it wasn't just like a battleground state to where, like, you know, they were killing each other through like armies wise, but it was more like people, regular citizens, were like, you know, like, oh well, you don't agree with me, so I'll kill you. So it kind of correlates to. I don't like talking about politics here, but like kind of like the Trump administration, like the people who were pro-Trump and the people who weren't pro-Trump, how they fought on social media. It was kind of like that, but back then they killed each other. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I'm not saying that pro-Trumpers and other political affiliations, they weren't trying to kill each other. I was just saying that, like, it's kind of like that, but they didn't have social media. They went to each other's houses, and a lot of times it
knocked on the door.
Yeah,
was like,
a lot of times it got violent.
We don't agree, so I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, a lot of times it got violent. So that's what I was trying to like, I guess, compare it to. Mm-hmm. It's really in our lifetimes, anyways. That's what we can compare it to.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. Social media is really taking the violence away a little bit. I mean, there's some nasty stuff said on social media, but I mean, like, you're not killing anybody over social media.
I'm sure there's someone somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
There's cases.
Yeah. But that usually results in the person committing suicide. But
April 1861, the Civil War kicked off, and obviously Jesse James and his family.
It kicked off like a football game.
Yeah.
In case you don't know, Fort Sumter, the shot heard around the world. Or not? Is that no?
No, I think that's the Revolutionary Army.
But Fort Sumter, it kicked everything off. That was like it was a long time coming, especially in the Deep South. Like, they knew it was coming.
Yeah, obviously not. I just said in Clay County was a surprise.
Well, that was Missouri. Missouri's farther up north. They're like in the middle of the country. But no, I'm talking about like Alabama, Georgia. Virginia, even, like, they knew it was coming. Like, they knew. In North Carolina, of course, where Fort Sumter was.
Yes.
Or South Carolina, I don't know. I can't
remember
which one.
Like I said, you know, they're obviously on the Confederate side. You know, that's their life. That's what they're used to.
Yep. I think, no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say all slave owners were part of, like, the Confederacy and stuff. Cause I can't definitely say that because I don't know if there's slave owners that were like, oh yeah, this is wrong.
I don't know
either. So,
but they went to the train station to send off Frank, who was joining the Confederate Army.
Yeah.
And of course they're all proud to, like, oh, that's my boy going to war for what we believe in.
Yeah.
And, you know, he caught Frank he caught the measles. Mm-hmm. Out doing his thing, with the army, and then the Union soldiers caught Frank. So they told him, they were like, "Look, we'll release you because you're kind of young.
Yeah,
but you got to go straight home. You can't fight in the war anymore.
Yeah, you
go straight home." So he did.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he felt robbed. He's like, I got the measles, and then I got caught.
Yeah.
So that's unfair. I didn't get to fight. I didn't get to do anything.
I mean, as bloody as this war was, Frank was extremely lucky.
He doesn't view it that way.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, as we look through it, I know, but as we look at it, he got extremely lucky because there's a lot of people that didn't get that chance, and a lot of people that got captured that were killed by both sides.
Yes.
A lot of people think that, again, because history is written by the victors, a lot of times people think, oh, the Confederacy was bad. They burned and tortured and everybody like that. The Union did it just as much as the Confederacy. I'm not saying that, the Confederacy was worse than the Union, but they both did some pretty shitty stuff. So, I mean, just to be like, oh, the Confederacy's bad, Confederacy's bad, Confederacy's bad. Union did just as much bad stuff as the Confederacy did. The only thing that the Union has over the Confederacy is that most of them, I'm not saying all of them, because there was a lot of Union people that didn't mind slavery. There was a lot of them that did, or that were abolitionists, that didn't want it.
Abolitionists,
who wanted to abolish slavery. And so those were the people that were like, oh, I have good intentions, but they just did a lot of bad stuff. Like, good intentions are they paved the road to hell.
Yeah.
So,
but when Frank came back,
Excuse me, sorry.
when Frank came back, Jesse's 14.
Mm.
And, as the war went on, right, Missouri came under Union rule,
Yeah.
right? And there's going to be people who are against that, especially people who own slaves.
Yeah.
And these people were called the Bushwhackers,
Oh, yes.
which is an interesting name. But Frank joined, right? And these people are
And
guerrilla style
yeah.
fighters.
And a lot of these militias, local militias, were known as Jayhawkers. That's what they were called. They were called Jayhawkers. There was Bushwhackers and Jayhawkers. That was the Union term for local militia, or Jayhawkers. And obviously the Confederacy was Bushwhackers.
I don't understand the name. I don't get the correlation between the names.
It's just different. There's Bushwhackers and then Jayhawkers.
But Frank and Jesse became supporters, and Jesse's only 14.
Yeah.
And they were a raiding party. That's what they did.
Yeah.
They went out and they would attack federal troops, and they would also rob people.
Yeah.
If they caught wind that you sympathized with the Union whatsoever, they would rob you, possibly kill you.
Yeah.
But if you were a federal soldier, you was done for.
Yeah.
They were going to kill you. And of course, the Southern sympathizers would hide the Bushwhackers from the Union. And they'd be like, we don't know who you're talking about. There's no one here like that. And that comes in handy quite often later on as Jesse gets older too.
Yeah.
It's his Southern sympathizers.
Yeah.
The Bushwhackers were extremely violent.
Yeah.
Like really violent.
Scalping.
Yes.
And murdering and everything
and
like
they
that.
didn't even hesitate to kill. So, but
scalping was on both sides as well.
What's
too.
worse is they're being held up as these Southern heroes, and they're murdering people. So
again, like I said,
to me,
it was both sides, though. It was
to
both
me,
sides.
that's not a hero thing. It's to murder people.
No, it's not. But like I said, it was both sides.
It doesn't
was
matter
Union
if it's both
and
sides.
Confederacy.
Murdering is not right.
No, it's not.
If they let's say I have a Southern friend who I don't agree with in a different aspect of life. All I have to do is tell the Bushwhackers that they're a Union sympathizer, and they'll go kill them.
Yeah, it's usually how that kind of stuff worked.
Witch hunting, which I dislike that term, but still, it's almost the same kind of attitude that they had.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but the Quantrill Raiders.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jesse's 14 at this time when he's with the Bushwhackers and Frank, who can't seem to not be captured.
Yeah, he's captured more times than he fights. Like I think he spends most of his time during this war captured,
either captured or home. Really, but it's unclear how much Jesse contributed as a 14-year-old to the Bushwhackers raiding. He could have just been there to help reload guns and stuff.
Yeah, there is no.
Definitive
I could
answer.
not find anything like how many people he killed, or
as 14-year-old.
As 14-year-old, yeah, as the Bushwhackers. I could not find if he was in any of the battles or if he was just like the water boy or the flag boy or the drummer.
Exactly, the drummer boy.
Yeah,
but
which apparently that was the most important position in the Union and Confederacy armies was their drummer boy.
That's depressing.
Yeah,
they're normally quite young.
Yep, 8 to 10, yeah, to 14, yeah. They're really young.
Yep, but the Bushwhackers started, taking in their prisoners and mutilating them in horrible ways. So in response to the mutilations of these prisoners, the Union rounded up all the Bushwhackers' women. Any female related to any known Bushwhacker was rounded up and kept in jail, right?
Yeah.
And they were forced to sign a loyalty oath
Yeah.
declaring public support for the Union. Zerelda, their mother, was kept for a week before she signed. So,
Yeah.
and of course, she don't mean it.
Yeah, no.
She didn't mean it whatsoever.
No.
But
they did torture his dad quite a bit, or his stepfather, the doctor. They tortured him pretty bad to the point where he had brain damage.
it's depressing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I don't mean to laugh.
I
but,
know.
I mean,
I know.
It's
You laugh because it's uncomfortable.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And on both sides.
Yeah.
But
Like they took him out to the woods and hung him over and over and over again from a tree, like kind of like let him go and then tightened it again and stuff. And obviously, lack of oxygen to the brain leads to brain damage, regardless of who you are. So I mean, like,
just because he used to be a doctor doesn't mean
Yeah, and he had to learn a lot of stuff over again, it's really sad.
She stayed with him, so she was strong enough to help him through it.
Yeah,
so.
No, Zerelda, she's very strong-willed, and she's one hell of a woman. Later on in Jesse James' life, though, she does do some questionable stuff. I don't know if we're going to get to that or not, because Jesse James' life is so long, and there's so much stuff that happened in it in such a short life. But we're going to try to. I mean,
during one of the bushwhackers' ambushes, Frank got captured again, and he escaped this time. He wasn't, given a deal. He actually escaped, which is,
Yeah, well, that's good on him. It would probably be best if he didn't get captured.
He didn't escape alone. There's other bushwhackers with him.
Oh, okay.
But he and the other bushwhackers ran into the Quantrill Raiders.
Yeah.
And they were like, you know what? Let's just saddle up with these fellas because they are pretty much doing the same shit we're doing. So we'll go with them. And let's go to, looks like it's Lawrenceville, Kansas.
Yeah, Lawrence, Kansas. Yeah, the
Lawrenceville.
Yeah, they and that's William C. Quantrill who leads the Quantrill Raiders, and that's basically just used a Quantrill.
The time being, yes.
Yeah. So it's thought that Jesse and not Jesse. I'm sorry, Frank James took place in the Lawrenceville.
Yes.
Massacre.
100% believe that he did, because he has again something to make up for. He's got captured again.
Yeah.
And during this massacre at Lawrenceville, I mean, they're saying that more than 150 civilians were murdered there.
Yeah.
And then they burned the town down.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, we're just gonna kill everybody and burn it just to add.
Yeah, I think like out of the 900 buildings that were there, 893 were burned to the ground. So after that, it was like something around that line. It was like 92 or 93% of the buildings were burned in Lawrence, Kansas. Like, it was so bad. Like, it's Lawrence, Kansas now, but you said it was Lawrenceville.
Lawrenceville, yes.
Yeah, so it's Lawrence, Kansas now, and that's probably one of the few massacres that happened in the Civil War that is greatly remembered. So, I mean, but there is another massacre coming up that Jesse did take place in.
Yes. Now...
Or take part in, sorry, not take place. Take part in.
Now we've got Frank on the run because of what he's done.
Yeah.
So he's sticking with the Quantrill Raiders all the way. I mean, he goes raiding all the way down into Texas.
Yeah.
And when he finally returns to Clay County, it's 1864.
Yeah.
And now he's official. He's an official Quantrill Raider.
Yeah.
Right. And part of this group is a guy. His name is Little Archie Clement. And he becomes idolized in Jesse's eyes.
Yeah.
This guy is like the shit. Right. Every teenage boy has that one person they look up to.
Yeah.
Little Archie was Jesse's. And this dude, he's like literally 5 foot.
Yeah.
Right. And he wasn't even a full adult yet. He's still a teenager.
Yeah.
And he'd already been a seasoned killer Like, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean, well, back then, and I don't know if you consider Missouri the out west or Wild West or whatever, but I mean, I surely do, because it's like with me, it's the 13 original colonies, and then a little bit west of that, like West Virginia and like that stuff. Like past those colonies, like that's what I would consider the West, because like the East, you automatically think of New York, Virginia, like that's the East, and then the West is everything west of those, especially back then.
right.
So, but that's back then. You were out in the boonies, like it was kill or be killed out there, like by animals. Unfortunately, with the fights between the people and the indigenous people of America weren't great. The relationship was not great, so they did fight all the time, and then just other people trying to take your claim or your land, because they did do that, because they didn't have like land deeds like we have now. There was like literally, if you farmed the land, you owned it, like that you laid claim to it, and then people would move in on your claim, and you would have to literally fight them off. And I don't.
Excuse me.
Going off a little bit off topic here, and stuff that happened to Abraham Lincoln's family. Someone tried to lay claim, but his father didn't fight back. He just was like, okay, let's move. So he moved around a lot, but like literally people had to fight off people because they were like, well, this is my land. And a lot of times, like if you're further east, you could just settle in court, and the judge or the justice of the peace would be like, okay, well, depending on who they liked more, got the land, or who was rich and kind of lined their pocket a little bit more. But the other times, if you're out west, you just killed the other guy. Like, you can't claim me if I kill you. So, I mean, you literally had to fight for your life every day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unfortunately, the younger men and women, they learned how to take care of themselves really, really fast.
Right.
Especially with violence.
But Jesse is 16 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right, when he meets little Archie.
Yeah.
Oops. And so when little Archie's like, yo, I'm gonna go raiding, Jesse was like, dude, me too. Because he can't look weak in front of this guy.
Yeah.
This guy is his idol.
Yeah.
And now, the Concho Raiders is pretty much comprised of a group of young men under the age of 21.
Yeah.
And they're guerrilla style still.
Yeah.
Ruthless, horrible, murdering people. And
when we say guerrilla style, we mean like ambush mostly.
Yes.
They ambushed. They did I guess guerrilla warfare tactics, kind of like hiding in the bushes and jumping out and killing people, or just shooting from the bushes. It wasn't like, because even back then, like they had warfare tactics. You followed orders and all that stuff. They literally just went through and just waited for a patrol to come down, and they killed them all and took them all out.
Jesse, through the praise of, everyone around him, his family, everyone he knows, everyone's like, oh my gosh, the Bushwhackers and the Concho Raiders are like the best things. They're Southern heroes. And, you know, even knowing what they do, they murder, they kill.
Yeah.
Jesse grew up thinking, well, the only way to get respect is to kill people.
Yeah.
And he found out really fast that he's really good at it.
Yeah.
He was
very
natural
good at it.
it. I don't know how you can be natural at murdering people, but
Billy the Kid was too.
They're this guy, he really knows how to kill people. So
as long as you don't have the regret or the remorse that comes with killing, I mean, I'm pretty sure killing's probably the easiest thing to do, especially with a gun. I mean, I just don't think he had the remorse. I think he was genuinely a psychopath.
Well, him and everybody else that was in the group.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, with the time period it was, you literally had to kill or be killed a lot of times out in the West. So, I mean, they didn't have time for remorse. If they saw the other person as an enemy, but like this isn't like the indigenous people's war or defending their land. This was like brother versus brother. Like your brother could literally be on the other side of the war, and you have to kill him. Like that's how it is. Like, you don't have to kill them, but you know what I'm saying, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, brothers would be like brother versus brother.
I get what you're saying, but I mean, if your beliefs are strong enough, it's gonna pull you apart.
Absolutely, and to the point where like
Families
they
do.
killed. Yeah, and that really happened back then. That really happened. Like again, going to our time, the Trump supporters and the non-Trump supporters. There was people that in the same families that would just not talk to each other anymore because of their different political beliefs. I mean, nothing separates people faster than political beliefs. That's why they tell you never talk about politics with your friends or family, because
Well, it's kind of
it's
hard
going to drive you apart.
In the Civil War time, it's kind of hard to not talk about it
Yeah,
because
because it's the way of life.
The literal subject of the Civil War, besides trying to keep the entire United States together,
Yeah.
is enslaved people.
Yeah.
So if you go to your cousin's house and this dude's got enslaved people, you're going to be like, I disagree with this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to not when they're openly flaunting that they believe that they should have these enslaved people.
Yeah, and it's not like they had a streaming service or anything to keep them occupied, but no, like they literally had the Bible and politics.
Yep, and it's like I said, it's different now. I mean, now you can, choose to wear your pro-Trump hat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But,
I don't know, we're crapping on the Trump guys, but we're sorry. I mean, whatever political belief you have, whether
makes no difference
whether
to
we
us.
believe it or not, like that's you. You're allowed to have your own opinion.
Getting back into, young Jesse.
Yeah.
A famous, I should say infamous, guerrilla fighter joins their group.
Bloody Bill Anderson.
Bloody Bill Anderson.
And I really want to not talk about him as much with this episode, because I really want to do an episode by himself.
Okay.
Because Bloody Bill was such a unique person during this time period. And I mean, you can get into it. If you have some notes about him, you can get into him a little bit.
I don't, because we were researching Jesse James.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because I really want to do an episode, probably season 5. He. Let me tell you.
He was one of the most feared.
Yeah. And
guerrilla fighters.
Man, and his life was just all shit.
He quickly took over the Quantrill Raiders. He ousted the original leader of the Quantrill Raiders. Mm-hmm. And so now Frank and Jesse are really learning from absolute masters at their own trades.
Yeah. Psychopaths, just literally people,
murderers,
who were born to kill.
Exactly. And that's the way war is. It opens up opportunities for people to be like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry.
But of course, they're part of the Bushwhackers, and their mom is so proud of them for living their truth, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
I mean, she's a mother. I'm sure she'd be proud of them.
I don't think so.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, whoa.
It's the simple fact that they're fighting against the Union to keep their enslaved people. That's what it is. That's what she's proud of. It's not the fact that exactly that they're even going out and murdering people. It's the fact that they're fighting.
Other podcasts talk about Jesse James and his family and Zerelda and stuff, and they're like, well, what doesn't make any sense to me, and I know this is probably going to be a lot of heat, but when someone says, well, they weren't that bad to their enslaved people, they treated them like family.
Yeah.
What?
You can't treat an enslaved person like family. They're enslaved.
I know.
If they had the choice, they would not be with you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then another one of the arguments of this podcast person, I don't want to say his name because I really didn't agree with anything he said, but he was talking about how, well, even after the war, they freed their enslaved people, and then some of them stayed with them because they were so much like family. And I was like, no, they had nowhere else to go.
They had nowhere else to go. I mean, even working for almost nothing was better than having nothing.
Yeah.
And it's they still didn't have a choice.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I just don't understand why people say that. Like, well, like with Thomas Jefferson, like, oh, well, he had children with slaves. He made his enslaved children wait on his freed children, like his white family. Mm-hmm. That's bullshit.
Yep. August 13th, 1864, Jesse was shot.
Yeah.
He was trying to steal a saddle.
Yeah.
And the owner shot him. And it went through his...
And some people, there's disagreements with this, because I know what you're going to say. You're going to say upper chest.
Yeah.
Through and through, didn't have any vitals.
Yeah, no internal damage. Passing straight through the the outer part of the right side of his chest.
Yeah, there's people that do say
the
that he
side
was shot
part.
in the lung. But with that, if he was shot in the lung, like if you get shot in the lung nowadays, like in 2022, you're going to die. Like there's a good chance you're going to die. It's like a 50-50 chance you're going to die. And that's with modern medicine. Back then, if you got shot in the lung, it was like a 5% chance of you living. And that was if the doctor was right there on site. Because a lot of the times, it wasn't the bullet wound that killed you. It was the infection that happened very,
Stonewall
very, very
Jackson.
fast. Yeah, Stonewall Jackson. Well, he didn't die. He just lost the arm, I think, didn't he?
He died of gangrene from losing the arm, from being shot. Friendly fire.
Okay, anyways. Sorry, I need to brush up on a little Civil War history. But, yeah, but, like, that was a lot of times. You died of infection. Because they didn't clean the materials. The bullet was made of lead, like real lead. And a lot of times they weren't carried in the, I guess, sanitary environment. Like, they were literally like...
Well, they are trying to kill each other, so I don't think
Yeah.
they really worry too much about the way the bullets are cleaned.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, that was the most of the time that's what you died of, is infection, because they didn't know how to clean the wound properly. They didn't know how to do surgery properly. So a lot of times that's how they
Excuse me.
died. And I
For
think,
goodness sake.
oh,
Jesse obviously was lucky. He didn't hit anything vital.
yeah,
Doc was like, of course, Southern sympathizing Doc was like, yo, rest up. You need some time.
yeah,
His, you need to clean your wound so it doesn't get infected so you don't die. And everybody else went out and continued their fight. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And then, you know, he healed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they went riding out again.
Yeah.
About a month-ish later. And they're like, you know what, let's go to Centrilla. Centrilla?
Centrella, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Centrilla?
Centrella, yeah. It's
Whatever.
the second massacre that the James brothers were a part of.
Boone County, Missouri. Let's go and look for troops. They're literally fighting. They should have just had the uniforms on and everything. That's what they should have been doing.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're horrible people. But, you know, they're smart too, because they stick intentionally to areas where Southern sympathizing is the strongest,
Yeah.
because they have camouflage there. They're like, you know, 80 people goes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go in, Jesse included, because
Yeah.
he's healed.
Yeah.
And they halt a train. And they go on board this train. There's 22 Union soldiers on the train.
Yeah.
And Bloody Bill's like, yo, I need a volunteer. And everyone's like, oh my god, they're going to pick someone to die.
Yeah.
So this young guy raises his hand, and he's a sergeant in the Union.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Sergeant Goodman. And
Yeah.
he was like, you can leave, right? Like, tell my tale kind of shit. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And then they killed pretty much everybody on the train. They robbed everybody on the train. The Union soldiers definitely did.
Yeah.
They scalped them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they set the train on fire.
Yeah.
So they're like, extra murdering, I guess.
Yeah.
In case you survived, here, have some fire.
And then, because Jesse James had, I think it's different reports. I've heard 6 kills and 8 kills, but he definitely killed.
But it really doesn't matter how many he killed.
Yeah.
The point is he still was there. And he took part in it. He liked it. And on top of that, everyone's like, dude, he's so natural about it. So it's not even like funny.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course, because of Sergeant Goodman, the news gets back to the Union Army pretty fast.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, this dude and his group are 80 people strong. And, of course, the Union Army's like, yo, we can handle 80 people.
Yeah.
So when they go to retaliate,
Yeah.
right, they go back in at 3 p.m. to start the Battle of Centrella, right?
Yeah.
And not only does he have the 80, you
Yeah.
know, bushwhackers, whatever they are,
Mm.
he also has 400 other Southern sympathizers from the area,
Yeah.
because that's what he does. He rallies them up.
Yeah.
So they destroyed the Union Army.
Yeah.
They left very few alive to go back home.
Yeah.
And, that's almost... that's just horrible. They aren't even, part of the Confederate soldiers.
Yeah.
And they've got regular town people there who are just murdering Union soldiers who were just doing their job, trying to come in and fix what happened with the train, which is also murdering innocent civilians on top of who they view as the enemy.
Yeah.
Goodman, Sergeant Goodman, he was like, the train thing was one of the most monstrous and inhuman atrocities ever perpetrated by human beings wearing the outfit of men. So he was very disgusted.
They had a way with words back then.
Yeah. But they won, obviously.
Yeah.
Because they made the Union soldiers leave with probably a few men left.
Yeah.
And, they're doing their
Can you
victory
imagine
circuit.
that sight? They basically went around and shot everyone in the head. They didn't.
That's not a good victory circuit.
I know. I'm just saying. After this battle, Jesse and all the other raiders and bushwhackers, and then the townspeople just walked around to make sure everyone was dead and shot them in the head. Every single person. No one. If you went in there and you were wounded, they left no survivors. They literally went around and just shot people in the head, and that's what it was.
Yep. But they're doing their. Look what we've done circuits. And they go into Boonville, sorry. They're still being hailed as heroes, even though they just had a whole ass massacre under their belt. And they were recognized easily.
Yeah.
Because, they're quite famous now. Infamous again, sorry. They were noticed by Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Cox and his Union troops.
Yep.
And of course, they probably weren't like, oh hey, by the way, I know you. No, fighting broke out pretty fast.
Yeah.
And Bloody Bill was killed.
Yeah.
And they had no leader, so they ran pretty much. Once Bloody Bill was gone, they were like, oh no.
Yeah, he was pretty much the glue that held them together. Kind of like it cut off the head of the snake. The body dies kind of thing.
Yeah, like in all of the action movies.
Yeah.
That one guy goes and they're like, oh, whoop.
Yeah, and Bloody Bill was that for them, so.
So Frank and Jesse.
He was the senior person. Everybody else was young as shit.
Yeah, they've all been doing the same thing for 4 to 5 years now.
Yeah, I know, but like I said, you don't have that strong adult person presence. Yeah, you're just like, oh shit, I'm scared now.
Frank and Jesse go home. And they decide that not only are they going to go home, but they're going to ride around their area, terrorizing, the people in Clay County who don't believe the same way they believe.
Yeah.
And when General Lee surrendered in April 1865, Jesse was out with little Archie in, I'm not sure where he was. Illinois, I think. Yeah. And he was completely unaware that the South had lost.
The news traveled very, very slowly.
Yes, but then, even when it got to their area, he was gone.
Yeah.
And so when he came back, he was told, and he was like, oh. When Lincoln was assassinated, Jesse James dismissed it as Union propaganda.
Why?
I don't know. He didn't believe it whatsoever.
You'd think he'd be happy about it.
While Lincoln was getting buried, they got the bushwhackers back together. Most of them. And they're going to pick up the shit that they did before.
Yeah.
Right? So, they did pretty much the same thing that they've been doing. They're going to town, killing people. And as they continue to do this, they're like, this isn't lucrative enough. We need to step it up.
Yeah.
So they change tactics. It's instead of just going for Union sympathizers, they go for everyone.
Yeah. All right, and that's when they basically started robbing banks and trains and stuff, and that's when we get into the James Younger gang. So the James brother joined Cole Younger and his brothers, John, Jim, and Bob, as well as Clell Miller and another former Confederates. They were all Confederate soldiers.
Yep, they all have their
they were
their
all
thing.
Southern sympathizers, and to form what was known as the James Younger gang, with Jesse James as the most public face of the gang.
Yeah.
Though the operational leadership was likely shared among the group. They pretty much
They did everything together.
Yeah, it was democratic. The gang carried out a string of robberies from Iowa to Texas. So they went around quite a bit. They weren't just in...
they didn't stay in Missouri.
Yeah, they stayed in Missouri for this. From Kansas to West Virginia. So they were pretty much everywhere. They robbed banks, stagecoaches, and a fair in Kansas City. They robbed the fair.
The fair, though, if they would have came just a little bit earlier, they would have got the max amount of money.
Yeah.
But they came later after the collection had already been taken.
Yeah.
So they also run into a string of those bad bucks too.
Yeah, they do. It's because they're children.
Not only are they young, but they're also not informed.
Yeah.
They don't bother to be like, well, this train.
It's not like the movies where they
don't
know
coordinate
everything.
it.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, well, I heard this, and and they make this foolproof plan that where they get the maximum
all they
amount of money.
know is they're like, hey, this train is and should be carrying, from the farmers to the banks.
Yeah.
This should be a lot of money, and then they hit that train, and it's only like $1,000.
Yeah.
And while that's a lot of money for them, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for bigger scores.
Yeah. Well, on July 21st, 1873. So this is a good years after the Civil War. They turned to train robbery, derailing a Rock Island Line train west of Adair, Iowa. All right, Adair, yeah, Adair, and stealing approximately $3,000. That's back then money. It would be $65,000 today. For this, they wore Ku Klux Klan members' masks.
Yep, because that started getting big too.
Yeah, it did after the Civil War, and just a horrible time in our history. By this, the Klan had suppressed in the South by President Grant's use of enforcement acts. They pretty much were like forced to the South. He should have literally just wrangled them all up and arrested them, but he was trying to make friends with the South. Former rebels attacked the railroads as a symbol of threatening centralization. So they did do this. The Klan members did attack trains, so that's why they wore that, so it would be blamed on them instead of the Jesse's gang.
Granted, they definitely agreed with the Klan.
Oh yeah, they did. The gang's later train robberies had a lighter touch. The gang held up passengers only twice, choosing in all other incidents to take only contents of the express safe and the baggage car. So they didn't really interact with people, but just twice. So John Newman Edwards made sure to highlight such techniques when creating the image of James as the kind of Robin Hood.
Yep, he cannot be trusted.
No, John Newman Edwards was a Southern sympathizer, and he basically turned Jesse James' gang into modern day, but the American Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, even though there's no reports that he ever did that.
And Jesse himself talked to the news, especially Edwards, and was like, this is what I do, this is why I do it, and because of the way Edwards wrote him, he was hailed as a hero, especially by the people in the South.
Yeah.
And everything that the dude wrote was pretty much untrue, because he idolized Jesse and what he thought he was fighting for.
Yeah. And during the time that Jesse was shot, a nurse took care of him. Or not nurse, but his first cousin took care of him.
Right, you got nurse and cousin confused. That's interesting.
Well, it's because she nursed him back to health. And back then, a lot of the nurses were just women of the area, midwives usually. But his cousin Z, she was actually named Zerelda as well.
Zerelda Menz.
Yep, because
she was named after his mother.
Yeah, because it's his wife, his mother's sister, who's baby.
Child.
So they were married on the 24th of 1874, which marrying your cousin back then was not uncommon for second and third cousins. But first cousins was still kind of taboo because, again, you get a lot of disformities and other child defects with marrying your first cousin. So, but they did have 2 children who survived to adulthood. Jesse Edward James, they had him in 1875, and Mary Susan James, later Barr, born 1879. Twins Gaud and Montgomery James, 1878, but they died in infancy.
Yep, that happens.
Yep.
Especially, I mean,
back then,
that's a thing.
Infant mortality was really high.
And Frank was also seeing someone.
Oh, really?
Yes, she was a respectable school teacher, Annie Walston.
Oh, really? Yeah, but Jesse Jr. became a lawyer who practiced in Kansas City, Missouri, and then Los Angeles, California.
That's what I would do if my dad was a bank robber.
Yeah, he was a lawyer. That kind of is kind of odd, really, because your father is an outlaw.
Yeah, but he knows his father.
And probably a very famous outlaw.
Probably wasn't around much.
No, he wasn't. He was not, no.
But I don't think you don't just become a lawyer, with that kind of background without having some sort of,
Yeah.
He's had some run-ins with his dad, and it probably wasn't pleasant.
Yeah. But in 1874, the Adams Express Company turned to the Pinkerton National Detective Agency.
Yeah, so, the Pinkertons.
Yep.
I hate Pinkertons.
The Pinkertons were like, and they're still around to this day. They are, well, back then they were the best of the best detectives. Like there was no FBI. There was no FBI at this point. Or if they were there, then they weren't they weren't as good as they are now. So the Pinkertons were like...
The Pinkertons were just as bad.
Yeah, they were just as bad because they did hire a lot of people that were...
Questionable.
Yeah, of course.
You don't hire people that are like, you're like, oh, I want these guys to,
They basically hired gunslingers to kill gunslingers.
Yes. Gunslingers versus gunslingers.
Yeah, so...
They just hoped that maybe, just maybe, the gunslingers that they hire will be pro whatever their cause is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, maybe they won't like Jesse James as much.
The gang received a lot of support from, again...
Southerners.
Yes. So they were able to elude the Pinkertons pretty well.
They had, like, the reverse, how with abolitionists, they had the reverse. They had little safe houses they could hide in. Certain people would be like... So instead of the
Underground Railroad, they had this... It was like the reverse Underground Railroad.
Right. They're like, Southern sympathizers would be like...
Yeah, hide here.
We will hide you, and we will not tell anyone. But, of course, you had... For the amount of people, like, 10 people in there?
Yeah.
You'd have to be like, hey, we have, 8 other friends that'll hide you, too, so...
Yeah, absolutely. And, but one of the main things I was going to get with the Pinkertons is Joseph Witcher, an agent dispatched to infiltrate Zerelda Samuel's farm, was soon found killed. And when he got off the train, he asked, where is Jesse James? And they did point him to the farm, and he was like, they were like, don't go up there because Frank and Jesse will kill you. And if they don't kill you, their mother will. And he was found later with 2 to 3 bullet wounds in his chest and 1 in his head, with a letter attached to it. And I'm not sure what the letter said, but it basically said that, like, send more people, they're gonna die, kind of thing. So 2 other agents, Captain Lewis J. Lewell and John Boyle, were sent after the Youngers. Lewell was killed by 2 of the Youngers in a roadside gunfight on March 17, 1874. But before he died, Lewell fatally shot John Younger.
Yep, there goes John.
Yep. And a sheriff named Edwin Daniels also died in the skirmish. So there were a lot of gunfights with these people, and just...
That's because they're gunfighters with gunfighters.
Yep. Alan Pinkerton, the agent's founder and leader, took this case as a personal vendetta. He began to work with former Unionists who lived near the James family farm, and on the night of January 25th, 1875, he staged a raid on the homestead. Detectives threw an incinerator device into the house and it exploded, killing James' younger half-brother Archie, named for Archie Clemens.
Archie Clemens, yep.
Blowing off one of Zerelda Samuel's arms.
Oh my lord.
So they threw it in, and Zerelda picked it up to throw it back out because they were throwing bottles and bricks through the window.
Mm-hmm.
So they threw probably a stick of dynamite, I guess. And she went to pick it up, throw it out, and it blew up and killed the baby. He was very young, and it blew off her arm.
And all this is gonna do is just piss him off more.
Excuse me, God. Yeah. So they're basically the Pinker declared that it was. They denied the raid was arson. Was the intent to arson, but a biographer named Ted Yeatman found a letter by Pinkerton in the Library of Congress. Yeatman, yeah. Which declared that it was his intention to burn down the house.
He was like, yeah, dude, we were trying to, and I mean, either way, they were trying to kill everyone inside.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a personal vendetta. He wanted to kill everyone, and so basically, the Pinkertons, they stopped chasing them because it became too costly. Is the reason they said. I think it was Mr. Pinkerton was a little bit scared because he did kill Jesse James, and there was a lot of people in that area that were sympathizers, and that just boosted, especially with the guy that was writing all these newspaper articles. He was like they attacked the federal government, attacked them, the Pinkertons attacked them, and they made the James gang a lot as the
going after their family
was very, very wrong. But in his defense, he thought that the James brothers were there, but they're off somewhere else.
There's no way they're ever there.
Yeah, I mean, they were there very, very rarely. That's why they definitely think that Zerelda's the one who killed the agent.
I'm not surprised. I mean, she is fierce.
She is fierce, and she did in a lot of interviews. She did a lot of interviews after after this happened, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll kill any man that comes to try to take my family."
No, she tried. Now she's gonna have to learn how to shoot with one arm.
Yeah, I don't know which arm it was. It's probably her dominant arm.
Whatever your throwing arm is.
Yeah, the downfall of the gang was September 7th, 1876, the opening day of hunting season in Minnesota. The James and Younger gang. I
like the correlation. They're like, oh, it's hunting day.
Yep.
It's the official start. Here we go.
They attempted to raid the National Bank of Northfield, Minnesota, which is near St. Paul. Mm-hmm. The robbery quickly went wrong. However, and after the robbery, only Frank and Jesse James remained alive and free. Cole Younger took a lot of bullets. Bob Younger was killed. Cole Younger, actually, the very famous picture that you do see of Cole Younger with his face all swollen and stuff, that's because he had like 8 bullets in him.
In his mouth?
No, like, he got shot in the face, he got shot in the lung, he shot in the leg, that other thing. Yeah. He got shot a lot of times.
When Jesse was talking back and forth with Edwards, one of the things that he was talking about is, you know, he was trying to say that he doesn't kill often, but he was saying that, you know, he respects people who are who stand up for what they believe in. But he was like, you know, but if you're going to stop me from getting into the safe, he's like, there's no bravery in saying no to me to when I tell you to open the safe.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, you know, all you're going to do is get yourself killed. And he's like, so there's no point. He's telling the newspaper this, and Edwards is printing this.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I respect, you know, if you stand up for things, but if you're foolish enough to stop me from getting into my safe that I'm trying to get into, you will be killed. And people are still like, oh my God, this guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're like, this guy is like the best guy. I've never seen this. I've never, you know, heard someone better. This is the guy.
Yeah. And after this robbery had went wrong, the newspaper guy could not spin it because he was doing a lot of stuff that was not, like, after the Pinkertons and everything, they started doing some bad stuff and robbing a lot of people, and he was like, I can't spin this anymore. Like, I can't spin this to make you out the good guy. So
I'm pretty sure
After
if
that,
he
they
was
went-
creative enough, he could have come up with something.
Absolutely. And they basically, they went back, Frank, went back home. Frank and
They do
James,
that often.
they basically had different lives, but Frank really wanted to go straight. He really wanted to go straight. He wanted to farm. He was tired of getting caught
Yeah.
all the time. So he was like, he separated from Jesse, I mean. So Jesse James needed to find a new gang because all the younger brothers were dead or captured. And Frank was like, I'm going straight. We've gotten enough money. We need to go
We need
straight.
to quit. Jesse's wife also encouraged him to.
Yeah,
that
Zerelda.
it's time to quit.
Yeah, she's like, no.
We've
And,
got kids to raise.
yeah, but he started to get another gang together because he's like, one more score.
Yeah,
one
one
score,
more.
I'll quit.
That's the death of everybody.
And we're skipping a lot of stuff here because, like I said, there's so much stuff to do or to say about Jesse James. But the Fords, James met. He was great friends with one of the Ford brothers. What's his name? Charlie.
Yeah, I was gonna say this. I think it's Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie. He was good friends with Charlie. He had worked with him with the Raiders and the Bushwhackers and stuff.
He
But
trusted
he
him.
trusted Charlie. He trusted Charlie. But Robert was just one of his brother. He brought him in, and there's a conspiracy along with this. The governor of Missouri, their people's land was worthless because they lived near the James. It became worthless. You couldn't sell it. You couldn't. And the governor was like, okay, we got to get rid of the James brothers. We have to get rid of them. So, but Jesse was so feared because he never took off his guns. And like you said, he was really, really good at killing.
And he was talked up quite a bit. And
Yeah, so the fear and stuff. But Robert made a deal with the governor. He's like, if I can kill Jesse, will you give me a pardon? And the governor's like, yes, I will. But you'll get in trouble for killing Jesse James because it's still a murder. But I'll pardon you right after.
yes, you're solving my problem. But yes, you're gonna still get in trouble.
And he did get pardoned.
Yeah. Well, he can get pardoned all he wants, but you should have just made the mayor go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But basically, they were on April 3rd, 1882. They had breakfast at the James house, and Zerelda and the children were in the kitchen, and they went into the living room, and
This probably
talking
impacted,
yeah,
his kid's life to be a lawyer too.
yeah. They traveled to Platte City for a robbery. They're going to, and he had heard rumors about a murder that one of another gang members that he had flipped on him, and he was talking to the Ford brothers about it, and the Fords kind of like were like, nah, he has nothing. He doesn't even know what you look like anymore, and because
Lying to him?
Yeah, they basically were like that, and he was loading up the thing, but loading up his wagon. But his neighbors didn't know that he was Jesse James. He was going by a different name at this time. So when he took the jacket off, because it was quite hot that day, he was like, oh crap, I can't let them see my guns. Because, I guess, because he was supposed to be like a businessman, and businessmen don't carry guns, I guess. So he took off his gun belt and put it on his bed. And then he's really OCD.
Well,
So
he
he goes into his living
room.
room. Yeah, no, he shouldn't have. He goes into the living room and goes to wipe off a painting because he was really OCD. He didn't like dust in his house at all. So he went to wipe off a picture, a portrait. And Robert came up behind him.
He couldn't even just kill him outside.
No.
So,
pulled-
knowing he's OCD and can't stand even dust in his house, he's going to kill him and get his blood everywhere.
Yeah,
That's like two FUs in one.
Yep. And Robert pulled out his 6-shooter, and this is unbeknownst to Charlie. Charlie was shocked as shit when this happened. But Robert pulled out his revolver about 4 feet away and cocked it. And this is per Charlie. Charlie was like, Jesse knew what was coming. He heard the cock. He heard that numerous times.
I was going to say, there's no way that he didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, and he just kind of like sighed, and then Robert shot him in the back of the head.
And got blood all over everything that he just painstakingly cleaned off, dusting it all off.
Yeah,
He was ready to settle and go home, and he was ready to be all done. And
Yeah,
which would have solved their problem to begin with. If they would have just left him alone, he would have just
Yep.
went and did what Frank did.
The bullet went right underneath his right ear and out his face, basically.
Now this is.
Yeah. And Zerelda heard the shot, or Z heard the shot, and her and the kids came out running, and, you know, he was dying on the ground. And Robert had ran outside saying, "Yay, yay, I killed Jesse James, I killed Jesse James." Because if Jesse James was facing him with his gun attached to his hip, there was no way.
There's no way.
Yeah, there was no man could kill him if he had his guns. Is basically what the legend was. So he killed him, and he went and turned himself in, of course, because that was part of the deal. And Charlie was like shocked as shit, like still standing there, like a mouth agape, like
He's probably thinking the same thing I was thinking.
Yeah, he's like,
he's all about blood all over the wall. He's just cleaning.
And Z looked at him and he goes, "What happened? What happened?" And Charlie was like, "It was an accident," and then ran.
Chicken shit.
Yeah. And Robert was a coward. I mean, if you're gonna kill a man,
exactly.
Don't do that crap.
That's such a shitty. No, that's almost as bad as his dad's end. Here, you know, you're trying to fix your debt. Let's get you out here for the gold rush. Cholera, debt.
Yeah.
And he has this, you know, controversial, you know, infamousness, depending on how you look at it, how you hear it from.
Yeah.
And he gets killed on his last go-around by a coward.
Yep.
In the back of the head.
The four brothers were they did surrender to the authorities, and they were dismayed to be charged with first-degree murder. In the course of a single day, the Ford brothers were indicted, pleaded guilty, with sentence to be hanging, and were granted a full pardon by the governor.
Who's also a chicken shit.
Crittenden is his name.
Chicken Chittenden is what his name is.
The governor's quick pardon suggested that he knew the brothers intended to kill James rather than capture him. So that's where that big conspiracy theory comes out. It's not absolutely proven, but they got pardoned really, really fast. It was like literally in 12 hours they got arrested, charged for murder, sentenced to be hung, and then pardoned. So basically they conspired to kill a private citizen, which I think we might have skipped over it, but the James brothers were pardoned because they
they're portrayed as good guys.
Yeah, they're portrayed as good guys, and that's what the people wanted. But basically, a person came up to Zerelda Mims and asked if she wanted to, or offered her a good sum of money, which was a lot of money for nowadays, to take the body around the country and display it. Kind of like a traveling circus almost.
Yeah.
She said no.
There's no way that she didn't think that he would die doing the things that he does.
Yeah, I know. And where does all that money go? Because they could have spent it all. Because they think the equivalent of what they stole was like a couple $1 million in today's money.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but it was spread out between, a certain amount of members.
Yeah.
Frank probably took off with quite a good amount of it because he wanted to start straight.
Yeah, and then obviously she turned down the offer of taking his body and displaying it for everyone.
Like a circus attraction.
So, she did die broke. Like, in a lot of debt.
Well, it could also be a not willing to spend that money kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, kind of like if I spend the money, they'll know that he was as bad as he was.
I'm pretty sure they already know he's as bad as he was.
I don't know, but she did die broke and alone. She never remarried.
Nope, he was her one.
Yep.
Her penguin.
Yep. What?
Penguins choose one mate for life.
Oh, okay. But yep. So that was basically the birth, the life, and the death of Jesse James. Probably considered the most notorious outlaw of our history. Whether or not, I think he was because of that newspaper person, I think he was a lot more hyped up than he really did. But, I mean, American outlaw worshipped as a hero.
Yes,
like
by the Southern.
John Dillinger, same thing, Bonnie and Clyde. All of those outlaws. All those outlaws were, yeah, they were coughing and burping and stuff. God. all those outlaws were worshipped almost because
Yeah, but I mean,
when you
there's
see an outlaw,
people-
you're like, yeah, they're so cool. You know,
No,
like I want to be
no.
like them.
there's a mental set in your brain that makes you think that kind of stuff. Because there's people out there today writing love notes and friendship notes and other bullshit letters to people like Chris Watts, who murdered his entire family.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a mental imbalance in the brain. I don't care who you are. If you're writing little kissy letters to serial killers or murderers, even like bank robbers, you gotta get your brain right. You're gonna have to go to therapy. You're gonna have to go get seen because that's not normal. You're not supposed to idolize people who kill other people.
Yeah, but a lot of the great people in our history, their hands aren't clean.
I'm not writing love letters to people who
I know, I'm just
should
saying, but
never see other
even
people.
the good people that we see in history, their hands aren't always clean.
I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying I'm specifically targeting people who are the Ted Bundy fans, the Jeffrey Dahmer
Yeah.
fans. Those who are that's who I'm targeting.
Yeah.
The people who would get murdered 100% because they're writing smoochy letters to these people
Yeah, but, you
who
know,
have no regard for human life because they murdered people.
well, the heart wants what the heart wants.
Well, the heart is stupid, and the heart needs therapy.
Okay, well, we're not therapists, so we can't give that therapy to them.
No, I'm not giving therapy. I'm telling them to go to therapy. That's different.
Well, we don't judge here.
I judge you if you're into that.
No, we don't judge.
I judge.
So, Trey judges, but I don't.
judge.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for this basically history lesson. We just gave you a history lesson of Jesse James, one of the most famous American outlaws ever. But
Yes.
yeah, and a weird life that he had.
It wasn't weird. It was a normal life. Frank's life was weird.
Frank couldn't stop getting captured, man. I'm surprised that he wasn't the one killed and Jesse was
Right?
the one thing. But apparently he had like a lot of wounds that weren't recorded during his life, because when they looked at his body, he had like 36 stab and bullet wounds.
Frank?
No, Jesse.
Oh.
I'm like, damn, like this dude, because there's a big conspiracy, and we won't get into it because it is kind of a far-fetched idea, and it's been disproved. But there was a conspiracy that he faked his own death, and that he went on and just went away. But
How
he would
is this
never,
far-fetched?
he would never do that because he loved Zerelda so much.
Maybe that's why she didn't remarry.
But yeah, but
Maybe he was taking care of her from afar.
yeah, but they proved that the guy, with DNA tests, they proved that he was
With
dead.
DNA tests.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they proved that he was the one dead. So we won't get into that conspiracy theory,
Well,
theory
we just
even though
did.
we love.
just got into the conspiracy theory. You just said it was debunked. It's done. We will not get back into it.
Okay. Anyways, well, I wasn't trying to, like, I didn't know why I said that because I didn't want to get into it in the first place because it was debunked. But thank you guys. Next week we're going to be doing a serial killer.
Wonderful.
I think. Let me see. I'm not this. This week has got me messed up because again we were both sick. Actually, Dominic, he wasn't sick, but Dominic was.
We're not allowed around sick people.
Yeah, he was quarantined away from us, so definitely could not do the podcast.
Did you know that the love letters are public? Whatever serial killer you have, you can find a love letter and read it. Just don't read out the person's last name.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so you can find some delusional idiot, some twit, and read their letter.
Okay. God, you were just.
And be like, look, this guy murdered. Who is that again?
What? Jesse James?
Oh, no.
No. Next episode is Urban Legend Michigan, and then the episode after that is Edmund Kemper. We might do 2 next week because we do have to catch up because we were all sick.
Maybe you should be careful saying that because anything can happen between now and then, so we might be able to just stick with one.
No, we'll just stick with one. But we will be doing the 1-year anniversary episode on the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So we'll have to do some rearranging, but we did release the season 4 episode list, so I want to stick to that as much as I can. But next episode will be Urban Legends Michigan. Good state. I'm expecting a lot of
state?
yeah. I'm expecting a lot
Michigan?
of indigenous people, urban Legends, and because it's so close to Canada, we might have crossover.
Okay.
But I'm not good with maps. That is close to Canada, right? It's
Michigan.
Michigan, yes, Michigan.
What? I don't even know where that's at.
It's right up top. It's beside Wisconsin. I think it's above Wisconsin.
Is it above Wisconsin?
I don't know. I'm not looking at the map right now. But anyways, I'm horrible with geometry.
It's okay.
Geology. I can't even geography. Oh my god.
I'm also horrible with geometry and geography.
Yeah, geography.
I am bad at all of them.
My teachers in my school know that I did not get good grades with geology. Or geography? Geography. I can't even say it. All of those G subjects I had to go through in high school and college and middle school and elementary school, I did not do well.
I think they call it something else in elementary school and middle school.
Yeah, but Michigan. We're going over Legends of Michigan. And I promise I will know where the state is by the time we do this episode next week. So, then after the Urban Legends of Michigan will be the serial killer, co-ed killer, Edmund Kemper. So
and we will have to find a love letter written by a fan.
Well, you can do that, and I'll have you read it because there's so much disdain in your voice.
It's because it's not normal. It's not normal to fall in love with someone who murders people.
What is it saying? Like, love
I don't care what
is
that.
in
I don't
the
care.
eye of the beholder as beauty. Never mind, beauty. All right.
It doesn't matter.
All right. Well,
Therapy.
Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week. We appreciate it. Thank you for holding on for that extra week because we were so sick. But
we also the book.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get into the
sources.
The sources. Sorry. What was the book that we got this information from?
The book that I got my information from. I don't know where you got yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jesse James. A Life from Beginning to End, and it's one of those history books.
Yeah, it's one of the history books. I love them. They're called Hourly History. That's the brand that's in it, and there's a lot of good history books. It's like around 45 to 50 pages.
Yeah, 45 pages.
Yeah, 45 pages, and it's just a great history book for those people that just want to take an hour out of their day or longer if you read slower. But like just take a little time out of your day just to learn some history. Those are really great books, and we think I guess where did we get it from? Kindle.
Yes.
Yeah, we got it from Kindle. We thank Kindle for being awesome and having all those books at our disposal. And I got mine from History.com. So, the History Channel. I love the History Channel. But I got most of my information from there and some various other websites. I try to stay off of Wikipedia, but apparently, Wikipedia has some really good information, but I do try to stay off of that because it is user-based, and a lot of people add a lot of false information or their own personal beliefs. So, thank you guys, and can we end the episode now?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, we appreciate it, guys. Follow the link below to all of our social media links, and if you want to email us and everything. I couldn't get the link button to work, but
we will.
Yeah, we will. We'll try to get that to work. But it's at Linktree / the Dartarian Show. So if you just want to type that into your Google search bar or something, it should come up. All right. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
All right, bye.